Okay, so it's been a while, and there hasn't been a shortage of things to do. And I hope that you really enjoyed all of the longer form video content that I posted. I want to talk about a journey that I took not very far away from my house in Arizona. It was 3 hours away near the Roosevelt Dam. And for those of you who don't know, there's a giant man-made lake called the Roosevelt Lake, and it's blocked up by the Roosevelt Dam, which was created, around like 100 years ago or so to make the Salt River be more regulated for farmers. It used to be that the Salt River would flood unpredictably, and most of the water that we get here in the valley actually comes from the Salt River. Well, believe it or not, there's a lot of hiking to do around that area because of the mountains that are there. And there's a lot of Native American Pueblo ruins and cliff dwellings all over the place in that area. It used to be a huge place of commerce for the Native Americans that lived there. They would farm crops, like cotton, for instance, and then there was like an entire artisan corps of people that would make like pottery and weave. A lot of those ruins are still there today, and some of them are crazily well preserved because of their engineering. This journey was something that I wanted to do for years. I made a map a long time ago of all these different sites that I wanted to visit in the area, but I never had anybody to go with me. No one ever wanted to. And so this last Thanksgiving, I decided to just make it a solo trip. Go camping out there and visit all of these different sites, some of them being extremely remote. The following is a bunch of videos, a bunch of photographs, as well as some journaling that I did along the way. But in the end, after I came back, I felt like I had overcome something, and a friend of mine who's very close told me that what I did was called a misogi journey. And what this is a Japanese ritual cleansing. In the past, people used to go to waterfalls where there are very cold waters flowing from the waterfall, and they used to wash themselves in it. And it was some sort of like endurance test. Kind of like those polar jumps that people do on New Year's, or just jumping in cold water. Over the years, though, people have kind of determined that like it doesn't have to be just like under a waterfall. It could just be an endurance test of any kind. And there's various reasons why people do them. I'm not exactly sure why I did what I did. I knew that I wanted to do this. This is kind of a moment in my life of rebirth and a reconnection with my true, like, higher self. It just seemed very important to me that I go and do this. I've always been drawn to it, and it really did fulfill something for me, and I feel like a different person. Along the way, too, I learned a lot about the different flora and fauna that lives in that particular area. And then I also just learned about the many different types of dwellings that were created by Native Americans, 1,000 to 2,000 years ago. What life must have been like at that time. There's very few places in the world left untouched like these dwellings are. Essentially, they're sort of like hidden. You can find out where they are, but they're so like not talked about on purpose so that people can't vandalize them or ruin them, because they really are just like left in a mostly like undisturbed state, and hopefully they will be for the next few thousand years. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Here's what my journey was like. So the first day didn't go as well as I thought it would, but that's kind of to be expected, especially when there's like not very much information about some of the places that I was going to. The first place that I wanted to go to was Devil's Chasm, and I just made like a route on the map that went straight to there from my house. But the problem is that once I got there, I'd already gone over like a quarter of a tank of gas, and then I also saw that it's like, oh, it's still like an hour and a half through like a graded road, which I knew, but I didn't couldn't find out how long that distance was. And I was like, okay, like I would rather not run out of gas if I have no idea where a gas station is in like relation to this, because I wasn't getting any reception on my phone at that point to be able to search for a gas station in the area. So I went back down and I decided to go to the schoolhouse campground, which is where I'm staying right now. And on the way I went through Roosevelt, and on the road there was a gas station. So it was actually very close to the Devil's Chasm. So I will try to make it back if I can. The road was really rough though, and like you definitely should have four-wheel drive. I don't. It was fishtailing a little bit, but I know when the brakes are locking up, and I know when there's fishtailing. I have like big sandbags in the back of the truck to weight it down because it's rear-wheel drive and there's no weight in the back. So that helped tremendously, but I don't know if I'll make it all the way to the top to Devil's Chasm. There is a ruin that I may have passed the entrance to that was along the way. I definitely can make it to that one. The problem is that hike is very long. It might not be that bad. Some of the other hikes I did today, like the entire pathway was graded. It was the easiest hikes ever, very flat. So first I went to the Schoolhouse Point Mound, which was, you know, a couple clicks that way, and it was really easy to get to. I will say too, it was pretty well hidden. I had noticed, I thought I saw a building in the background, but really it was actually the signs for the ruin itself, and it was still kind of like tucked away. When I saw it, it was very big and very high, but it was just essentially just a big pile of rocks. I don't think anybody would have noticed that it is what it is if there wasn't a sign or a bunch of fencing around it. So that was really cool to see. It was kind of cool to see the wildlife that was in the area. I saw like 3 roadrunners, I saw a coyote, and I saw an eagle, all very cool. And seeing like the desert scrub that's here, not just cacti like how it is in Phoenix and Mesa. There are some cacti, but they're not the dominant plant around here. It's like all these mesquite kind of trees and bushes. I tried to go to 2 other ones, and I forget the names of them, but they were both on private land, and that was really saddening because there's a third one that I want to go to too. I passed where you would go onto it to get here, and there were signs everywhere saying like this is private property, and it's like shit. There are other things to do here, just like actual hiking trails, and so maybe I'll look into that and do some of that and not worry so much about seeing ruins. Most of the ruins that are here, other than those 2 that I was talking about that are way up north of here, they're just rubble. There's not much of a structure left to them. You can tell that they are designed differently than maybe some of the cliff dwelling ones that I've seen. Very large boulders rather than more like flat stones were used, and I wonder if it was a mortar that eventually eroded through time with rain. You have to remember these mounds are around 1,200 years old, which are some of the newest ones around here. The one in Devil's Chasm is only 700 years old, so kind of one of the last ruins in the Roosevelt area to be built, and those are pristine. So I hope to be able to see them, but as I said, the path to get to them is very treacherous. I'm told that there's a lot of snakes up there. I haven't seen any snakes around here. It is November, so they could be wintering right now, although it is still pretty warm. It got into the 70s today. I've been hot pretty much the entire day, but there is like this cold breeze that'll pick up eventually. So at night it probably gets rather cold, probably in the 40s, and I would think that like snakes would take that as their cue to hibernate. Anyways, that's day 1. I've read a lot. The people that are behind me, I don't know if you can see them over there. I did come here for peace and quiet, and those people, whenever they're here, they just run a generator the whole time, like a gas power generator, and I'm like, fuck, dude, that is so annoying. And like, I walked around the whole campground, and there's kind of a lot of people here. No one is running a generator. There's seriously no reason to. I don't know what they're powering. Like, are they just powering like a light or a fan in their camper? Like, what are you powering? Does it have AC? I just have my little tent and my truck, and that's it, and just, you know, some water and some food. Anyways, that's day 1. Alright, so day 2 is in the books. I should talk about what I did last night, which was really cool. Speaking of cool, it was very cold. And one of the reasons why I did so many night activities, because I was just trying to keep warm. Just swallowed a bug. Okay, yeah, I swallowed a bug. That was really cool. I was trying to keep warm by doing some nighttime photography, and that was a lot of fun. I haven't done that in quite some time. I used to do things with light, you know, the classic thing where you draw and stuff, and I did things with like campfires and lighting chairs and shit on fire. And last night I just took pictures of the stars because you can see them really good, even though Roosevelt's down the way. There's not really that much luminescent light. But yeah, it was super cold last night. I made some upgrades to my tent today, and hopefully that will help keep some of the heat inside of the tent. I realized too late with the rain catch thing on the top, that's not really keeping the heat inside. There's just like screens. So what I did was I took a tarp that I brought with and just like put it on top of it. I have another sleeping bag. I put that in there, so we'll see how it goes this time. I mean, I woke up hot, but everything else around the mummy bag was like freezing. So as soon as I came out, I was just like, it is so cold, but it's all good. Today I drove down a really like that same road. Remember how I was saying that I was going to try the one that was closer to the trail, the Coon Creek cliff dwelling, but I was like, it'll also be really long distance to hike though, and boy howdy was it. It's an 8-mile hike in, and it took fucking, I guess not that long, but it felt like forever. That's where the trail turns. This must be the walking trail down to the actual cliff dwelling or stone structure. So absolutely quiet here, and that is why I came out here. These beautiful mesas on the top. Red, like oxide stone. This is what I came out for. Looks like people have camped here, so if I get fucking stuck here, I guess I could fucking build a fire and just like sit there all night long, because it'll just be way too cold. Looks a little hard. Looks like people may have come down through that way. Sucky. Wow. I did have kind of a harrowing experience when I got down to the bottom of Coon Creek. Of course, it happened right as I was like in some really thick brush, and I was like crawling through it, like literally just like hunkered over crawling through it. I heard like woofing kind of sounds, and I was like, fucking shit, it's a bear. And bears will make kind of a woofing sound if they're frightened or pissed off. And I was like, are you fucking serious? And like, of course, it was like over my shoulder too. And I saw just like a mass of black walking, and I was like, okay, shit, maybe he doesn't see me. That's sometimes okay too. Like, I have seen a bear before, and like sometimes they just straight up don't fucking notice you and they walk away if you stand really still. But then I saw another one, and then I heard that barking from both of them. I pulled like my knife out. But then it started to sound more like oinking. There were two really big fat javelinas that just booked it. Like, they looked at me and they're like, oh shit, and then they just ran. I didn't know javelinas could get that big. So that was two javelinas. I don't know if I caught it on camera or not, but the barking sounded like black bear kind of when they're freaked out. Freaked me out, that's for sure, but they took it. They took a bolt. They fucking ran. So hopefully I won't be seeing them. They'll like fuck up your legs really bad. They're like tusks. Honestly, there's lots of stuff out there for them to eat because I saw javelina poop everywhere. I also saw like a tarantula, like a real one, not like the one that I saw in the bathroom here. That's not a real tarantula, but this one was just like walking along. I almost stepped on him and he didn't even really notice or care. So when I was walking around the bottom of Coon Creek, when I was walking through the actual bed, which was dry at the time, I found it really hard to find where the trail was to go up to the cliff dwelling. And I walked around back and forth and reconsulted the map, but eventually I kind of came to the realization that the cliff dwelling is made out of red oxide stone, so there probably would be a trail of red oxide stone. You can see it off to the right in this shot here, the stone trail that I'm talking about, and I finally realized that and just basically climbed right up to the side of it. This is like the fucking creek bed, but no ruin. Here she fucking blows. Wow. The color of the stone. If I can make it. You can still see one of the timbers used. That's like a 700-year-old log. It just kind of shows how great their engineering was. Oh well, you can see all the way along across. The beams are still there. Alright. No fucking bear. Oh, it's a lot cooler in here. The temperature is just so much better. It's another beam that came down. Some beams and stuff up here. It's like a second story potentially. You can see there's vandalism, which fuck you, really. This looks like it's older. You would never tell that this was here. I mean, I walked right past it, which I think is kind of the point. There's like a beam here that comes across too, but you can see there's structural things going on. And what I meant by structural things is degradation to the actual structure itself. A lot of it is what you would expect. And I did see that many parts of it have been repaired over the years by other people. But one thing that I did notice that was quite unusual to any cliff dwelling that I've seen in the past is it looked like there was a huge separation from where the walls met the actual cliff face. And I wasn't sure if this was caused by earthquakes or just like the ledge sinking down into the creek bed through erosion. It was really unclear to me, but here are some views of that separation. There's more. Multiple rooms. Very small opening. Not gonna go in there. I don't want to wreck it, but very cool though. Can hear a little wood chipmunk. Extremely well preserved though. That's kind of what the cliff gives you. It's just like hidden, cool. You don't have to repair this all the time. Which I'm sure had to happen every once in a while. Well worth the trek. I knew that was going to be a long one and confusing. I didn't get mauled by javelina. So today was really good and really a lot of solitude. It started out super cold. I had 3 layers on, and then by the end of it, I'm like down to this t-shirt, and I did some really creative things with my bag and this tripod in the back of it to carry all that stuff without like swaying around or getting caught on branches and things like that. Near the end, coming back though, I was just like, dude, my everything hurts. I'm doing a little bit better now that I'm back at the camp and I like ate some food and drank some tea, but I haven't done this in so long and it feels so very good. And I've never done like hikes solo this challenging either, and it's very fulfilling. Also, some really good news. The people behind me, the generator people, they're fucking gone. Like, they ran their generator until, like, the gas fucking ran out last night. That was the other reason why I couldn't sleep. I do have some reception here, so I'm able to, like, communicate with people and tell them I'm not dead. Even when I was, like, hiking around in that super remote area, when I got to, like, a high point on the side of a mountain, it was like, 5G, full bars. Like, what? Apparently, if you just get like high enough, maybe you'll catch some. But that whole like north side of the lake that gets remote, and there's not a whole lot over there just because it gets such high in elevation that you can't build anything. Over here, it's flatter, and there's like a town over there, and yeah. So that's day 2. I don't know what I'm gonna do tonight. I'm probably just gonna like read and like relax, especially now because that stupid generator is gone. Other people are running generators. Apparently, it's an RV thing. I don't really know why they can't have like batteries or solar panels to. I mean, how much electricity you're really gonna use with your RV? I mean, anytime I've ever slept in like something like that, it was just like. It just like as a tent with wheels. I don't know what to say. Like there's like no electricity. You can take a shit in it. Like that's about it. You can sit in like some chairs around like a kitchen table. Like you can cook with propane. I don't know what they're using the electricity for. So whatever. I mean, everyone does camping their own way. Some people's way is just, I guess, like really annoying. I'll talk to you soon. Day 3 is in the books. I've put anything that is of value to me into the truck just because it's probably going to rain tonight. And I'm just kind of like hanging out. Last night was really good with the tarp on top of my tent. I'm going to say it was warm in there. It was still sort of like being in a cooler, but like I was fine. It was really good. I did notice the next day there was like some condensation from my breathing, but like I was like really hot in there. Having a second sleeping bag around the other one was just like perfect, and I could sit and lay in there and just read, which is what I wanted to do. One interesting note is during the day here, if you sit in the shade, the wind is chilly and you'll want to wear like a sweatshirt. But if you sit in the sun, it's way too hot to wear a sweatshirt. And then around like 2 or 3, when I'm back at the campsite, it just becomes too hot and you have to go do something else, walk around. You're not going to be able to sit and read. You can't sit in the tent and read because the sun is making the tent like a little hot room. It's crazy, but I've learned to cope with it. The last 2 days were really long hikes anyway, so when I got back it was like basically the sun was setting. So today was not exactly the hardest hike ever, which is good because tomorrow is going to be really hard walking up with a park ranger this Tonto National Monument upper cliff dwelling. You can only go up there with a park ranger, which is cool because I don't really have to plan a whole lot as far as danger goes. It's just like bring good shoes of water and snackies. That was like what they told me. But today I drove 20 miles on FR 203 and the truck did really well, and I went even through 2 different points where there was water. There are 3. And then I eventually did meet the Devil's Chasm Road, or Cherry Creek Campground Road, and I couldn't go any farther, although I did see some people in Jeeps go up it, and I was like, damn! But I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it in the truck. So that was an extra 2 miles added to an already 3-mile hike. One thing that happened that was interesting was the map that I had. It didn't exactly, again, I don't have a way to measure how long I've walked, especially with no cell phone service. And so I came to what I thought was the trail, and I started walking up it, but I started noticing like the compass readings weren't matching the map that I had. But it was a really interesting landscape, so I decided to keep walking it anyways, and hoping that maybe it was the trail. It wasn't in the end, but I did get some really good shots of the peaks above Devil's Chasm, and then I did get some really good looks at Cherry Creek. But eventually, after what felt like 2.5 miles, I met a gate, and then I knew it wasn't it because there's no like cattle gate on the map. So I headed back down, kind of pissed off because it wasn't the trail. And I told myself, like, if I don't make it to the ruin by noon, I have to turn back because of how much time I spent walking the 2 miles and then knowing that the trail will be further up. I did find the trail eventually. There was a huge ravine, like an ATV trail, that was just filled with cobble that fell down from the left side of Devil's Chasm. And that was kind of a hard go with the walking, but it was fine. I did a lot of that yesterday and the day before that too. I did finally see a sign that said, like, hey, there might be cliff dwellings in here. Don't fuck them up, and we're not going to tell you where they are. And then there was like a forested area that was getting all its moisture from this creek. And boy, let me tell you, that was a beautiful creek. It was so crazy to see that in the middle of the desert. All of the desert scrub and stuff just disappeared. There was random little cacti in there, but it was mostly like deciduous trees, and it was in the midst of fall. And there was leaves everywhere. It was so peaceful and tranquil. The trail leading up to the cliff dwelling, though, was kind of unclear and insane. I got pretty far in. I probably got really close to the cliff dwelling, but then eventually the trail it didn't make sense, and I didn't want to risk anything and just climbing in general. Like, there was a lot of points where it's like, if you didn't get a good footing, you could just fall off. Maybe you wouldn't get hurt or die, but like, it wouldn't be a fun time. Let's just put it that way. There was a part I knew of that, like, eventually you'd have these ropes that were like hung off trees. I never came to that. I just saw a hell of a lot of the creek. I saw a white-tailed deer, a doe, maybe like 2 years old, that ran away, and that was really cute and pretty. But then I just went back because I hit noon and I was like, I need to stick with my plan. I know how long it takes to go down 203, FR 203, and I'm not going to be driving it in the dark. There were 2 gentlemen when I was leaving that were like looking through binoculars at something on the other side, 4-wheelers, and just like waved at them and kept walking because I knew that I had to like do like the 2-mile hike back to my truck. And then later on, maybe like a mile down the road, they like pulled up and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm fine. It'd be cooler if I had like an ATV. I'd be better then. But like, no, I'm totally fine." And they're like, "Was that your truck down there?" And I was like, "Yep, that black Nissan, that's my truck." And they're like, "Well, we'll give you a ride down there. Like, no big deal." I accepted. And then when we were riding down there, one of the guys on an ATV was far ahead of us. And then all of a sudden he was pointing like, "Stop, stop, stop. Look, 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 look." And there were a bunch of like, maybe like 3 or 4 little javelinas that were like, had just passed the road behind him. And they were going straight down like this very abrupt ravine. And the guy I was riding with was like, oh shit, like, I bet you any money they're gonna be down there running around on that flat. And we kept driving, and I was like, there they are, there they are, there they are. And he pulled over, and we saw like 30 little javelinas running around down there, and it was so cute to see. Maybe they're like a year old. They weren't babies anymore, but like they were nothing compared to like the big ass javelinas, which I didn't know could get that big. Yeah, they were just running around chasing each other on this flat down below, far down below, maybe like 2,500 feet. I think that was the Cherry Creek campground, and I said that to the guy, and he's like, I don't know if it is or not. It looks like a cool place to camp though, and it's just like this complete gravel area with some trees. I'll check in tomorrow, probably when I'm at home, I guess, because I'm just gonna do the hike and just drive home. On that fourth day, I never did record another video, but that was a much easier day. There is a national park there. It's called the Tonto National Monument. There's like a whole parking area and everything. There's a building dedicated to two cliff dwellings that are absolutely immaculate, but also very grandiose. These two cliff dwellings were basically the home for ultra wealthy like artisans. They were weavers. Obviously, in those days, that was an art that most people probably didn't know how to do, and these people perfected it. Inside of the museum, before you actually go to the lower cliff dwelling, they have samples of native weaving from that time, and it's extremely fine. Like, it's almost like the cotton that we see today used in our clothing, and that's manufactured by machines. So when I arrived that day, I was to be part of a group of people that were going to go up with a park ranger to the upper cliff dwelling that is usually closed off. Going up to the one that I hadn't seen before, though, with the park ranger was a fun time. It was very slow. We took a ton of breaks that were kind of unnecessary, but the park ranger was very knowledgeable and lived in the area his whole life. There's not really much to say about these dwellings other than that they're really grandiose and huge. They're underneath like a cliff. They're not caves. People didn't dig them out either. I know that question happens a lot whenever you go to like a cliff dwelling. Did people like carve out this cave in the side of like a cliff face? And the answer is no. Why would you do that? There's plenty that exist and are perfect for building a cliff dwelling. And the whole point of making it is the protection from the elements. Basically, water does erode adobe and the things that they used to use to make pueblos, but when you have like the cliff, you don't have to maintain it as much. Pueblos, even though they are like a great engineering feat and they're kind of just like the perfect building material in any climate, you do need to keep maintaining it, and that means like mudding the walls and cementing it and doing repairs, because they do erode. It takes a long time, but I mean, we're talking about people that lived in these things for generations. We know that people moved away and then other people found them and moved back in, and they would do repairs, do it their way too. That's how we can tell that there was different groups of people that lived there. There also was a cistern in the back that actually would hold water. The trail itself went through a creek bed, not dissimilar to the one that I saw in Devil's Chasm, but it was dry. That basically means like part of the year it is wet, like the trees were deciduous, the creek bed still operates, but only during certain times of the year. So I assume that they kept water up there. Having to continually go up and down this mountain to go and get water probably was tiresome. And if you could just bring up enough water and store it there, why wouldn't you? The other thing that was interesting there was a beehive above the entire cliff dwelling. The park ranger kept reiterating that bees weren't here. And it wasn't until Europeans came to North America that bees finally came here. So people didn't have beeswax to make candles and stuff. Native Americans in the Southwest, their diet was really good. Like, as far as like longevity goes, this is like a really great diet. But kind of a main health problem of people that lived in the Southwest, though, was lung issues because of building little fires or having little lights in their rooms. And you can see like the soot in a lot of cliff dwellings from all of like the fires and lights that people used to have going kind of constantly for either light or warmth. But like that smoke and that inhalation did affect them to a point where you could see like enlarged chest cavities in burials that have been found over the last few years. It is really inspiring to commune with the past and look at how you live your own life in comparison. You can see how like not dissimilar people in the past are from the people that live today, but then you also can see a lot of differences. A different way of thinking, a different way of life was certainly theirs from our own. I mean, even just being without electricity, to be able to have lights to stay up as late as I do, not having that really like changed even like my circadian rhythm. You know, like I slept, like I would sleep basically when the sun would go down for a few hours, but then I would wake up and then be out and about like at night, and then I would get tired again and fall asleep again. And even just doing that for like the 4 days that I was out there, it reset like my sleeping cycle. I've always had a really hard time sleeping, and ever since then I've slept great, just because I'm like going to bed early like you should when it gets dark. But yeah, I would do this again. I have some other journeys planned for myself in the future, and I'm ready to take them, and I will be putting them on this channel very soon. This channel isn't just about like breaking patterns in my art making practice. It's also about breaking patterns that have held me back. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do and just didn't think it was possible, which is a pattern in my life, is traveling the world. And in a few months, I am going to pack up and I'm going to go around the world and be basically a digital nomad. And I'm going to paint while I'm away, and I'm going to film the progress and film the places that I visit to share that with whoever's willing to watch this channel. So thank you. I'll have another video up very soon. I have a couple in the works all lined up that need to be completed and edited and so forth, but you'll see them very soon. I'll drop them, as well as like some of that longer form content. I think it's really important for me to just document my life and get into the habit of doing that. Breaking a pattern of not doing that seems very important to me. I'll talk to you all again soon. Bye.